Hi, everybody. My name is Chad Laux, and I'm an associate professor here at Purdue University. I've been here, I think this is my 16th year. My prior life, I've been an ASQ member since I was a student. And so we're going back to almost 30 years, old enough to now be a senior member, member of the LED division, and a couple others, Six Sigma, quality management over time, serve my local section accordingly, try to be a regular attendee at WCQI. My prior life, I was in manufacturing, process engineer, industrial engineer, managed design engineering, but most of it dealt with quality in the late 90s, mid 90s, got involved in Six Sigma.
My name is John Springer, as has been indicated already. I'm Chad's natural one intelligent team member today, joining you. This is 19 years at Purdue. I'm a professor in the Department of Computer and Information Technology, looking at data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, learning in general. And recent focus I have is on cybersecurity. Into the 70s, neural networks that ostensibly used to try to model the human brain. Obviously, then the term neural came with that. If you follow any of the discussion, you might be familiar with terms like a winter and a summer. Essentially, it's a description that we've gone through generations, iterations of the technology. We've finally gotten to the point where the computation caught up, and we're starting to see the manifestation in the last 5 to 10 years of what was envisioned a long time ago. And so it's an interesting thing to look back. The concepts have been around for 60 to 70 years
Mm.
in that sense. And then, like many things, we weren't quite able to implement, led to lots of disappointment. And we repeated that cycle a couple of other times throughout history. Now we're seeing in the last 10 to 15 years, renaissance of this. And now we are exploding in terms of the growth that we are seeing.
So part of that, I guess I would say, just an example, is we have now AI that could maybe perhaps pass the Turing test, the famous test, and to understand if you're communicating with a human on the other side of things. So it's the computation that's really accelerated. And here at Purdue, like every other institution, it's how do we deal with AI? There's been a lot in the press about how education's dealing with it. How are we dealing with it with regards to, the writing and the research that's done? So if we go back, I'm an associate editor for an international Lean Six Sigma journal, and we adopt the journal amongst many others, in the publication world. We adhere to what's called the Committee on Publication Ethics, COPE. It's been around a while. Most major publishing houses adhere to these standards. So COPE now has standards around this. You can read this list. In addition to AI not being human, it cannot be listed as an author. It's not human. You can't attribute a copyright. You can't attribute to AI. It's not a person. So, and the second point is really important to think about. It can't take responsibility for submitted work. Whoever is dealing with the AI, they have to take the proximate responsibility for the submitted work. So it doesn't meet the most basic criteria of what authorship means. Non-legal entities, those that disseminate and adjudicate problems, copyrights, intellectual property issues, cannot manage conflicts of interest between AI and humans. And then finally, how do we transition from a tool to a team member? Like John said, it was really a tool early on, but due to the computational power that we now have between cloud and Industry 5.0, we have the ability to move it into more of a team member role. And in my classes, I tell my students, you can and should use AI to support your team and what it can do. And in fact, there's some things I wasn't aware until I put this webinar together. I'll take back and put back in what I'm teaching. There's a critical definition with regards to role. This is the number one issue to suss out. I was having a conversation with a colleague who works with information that is sensitive, if not classified, and one issue with AI, and this goes for most of you, is that if you're building AI engines in-house, organizations are doing this with regards to knowledge management. Let's take what we do, what we know as an organization. Let's build our own large language model. Let's build our own internal AI for improved knowledge management. But AI crosses boundaries. boundaries that are set up by people with regards to information protection, security protection. And at this moment in time, I'm not an AI engineer, it's very difficult to build a large language model recognizing those boundaries. Yes, this is an emerging area too. How do you deal with controlled information? It's important to understand that. So most organizations are not just jumping pell-mell into this. It's what can it do? What should it do? How do we want to interact with it ourselves? So with regards to research, there's a couple papers. We'll send off a little review after this and looking at its capabilities with regards to big data analysis. But that's just what I was talking about. We're in the area of big data. I come as an engineer, quality and industrial engineer. Most of my life was built around structured data, smaller data. So it wasn't anything that my profession necessarily had to deal with. But I've worked with John on a number of research studies. He's the big data expert here. These are all big data issues that we have to deal with to problem solving. So it can help us improve our creativity. But by going beyond, here's a problem. What does everybody in the room think about what the best solution is, or in the organization? Maybe the best solution is not necessarily inside the room or the organization, but if you have a problem and you have a similar solution that's outside, it can help with that potential. Now we do have a tool on our toolbox, the trees idea, but this goes wildly beyond that. And when I think about what I am also using this is that when we have problems is go on a scavenger hunt. What sort of similar business cases can be found in a large language model that can give our team ideas in terms of problem solving. Now, downstream of that, of course, is what are the parameters and whether is the fit right. But in a series of queries, we can get to that point. So, John, do you have anything to add here with regards to this?
No, I think you're hitting it.
Okay.
We do have, and again, folks, I know that we've got some things in the comments.
Keep me on time.
We'll return to in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
But please, I think there's also some suggestions and responses too. And we can again bring those up and just
Brilliant. Performance enhancement mechanisms. So improved collaboration processes. So think of the process you already use to collaborate, bring it in to support that existing collaborative process. For me, that's primarily the project management and the team building, team management, team enhancement phases of any singular project. Benefits, and the way I like that because I use it myself, but it's good to get feedback from a group to see how we're all using that as well. And I think that could be best done as a go in project management approach. Benefits, I keep returning to the same points, but I'm a firm believer in that we want coherence in what we're doing and hitting on some of the same points again and again will bring clarity. What is the enhanced role of the group? Making sure you have a clear role for AI and supporting that. The ability of the teams to move faster. Perhaps we could come up with more creative ideas faster than the simple what's acceptable for AI slash automation. Yes, and that's good. Not yes, but transparency with authors and reviewers. Being upfront, transparent with reviewers, authors, other humans. Accountability for the decisions. You're accountable for those AI decisions. There's no accountability from the engine itself. Guidelines. I went to who dealt with this first was the editorial personnel amongst us, people who are taking creative work, having to editorialize that, edit that work. We do that ourselves here. How do they come to decisions? That's where I go to. I go to with regards to that is what are the boundaries as we see now? And then ensuring transparency in AI engines, understanding what that is, and then finally addressing and correcting biases. Now, with regards to biases, I am less informed than I feel like I should be with our algorithms and AI. John, what are your thoughts on the biases in these algorithms?
fundamentally this starts with the data itself and understanding, and it's just there's a natural tendency of the data to be biased toward certain cases, whether they be, we can have skewed data, recognizing that we're trying to find cases that are, the exception to the rule, these sorts of things. And obviously, if we're training data, we're going to have more cases, especially those that we have labeled as the majority case. And so naturally, when we get into the majority case, in using the metrics that are often used, like accuracy in this case, we can always guess that the majority case is going to apply because it's the overwhelming majority of the cases that are in the data potentially.
Hmm.
So you always start with the data having natural biases and being skewed. The algorithms, obviously, they are learning, and there's some question about, again, the models that come out of this in and of itself, the algorithms, the bias there. It's debatable that there's bias there, but
Hmm.
understanding that they can be poisoned
Hmm.
with data that can, if you give it enough of those cases,
It'll lead in that direction.
essentially, yeah, it'll go in that direction.
Yeah, I
So
think about that too. When you think about how it's built, it's the probability, probabilistic basis of this. It's trying to predict what the next word, next sentence will be. And I think that's understandable to look at it that way. At least that's how I do. Others might have something enlightening as well. So what's your future look like? More sophistication. And, we've seen, some of these issues now with regards to the visualizations, deep fakes, whatnot. I think it'll be increasingly important to understand, what am I dealing with on the other side of an interaction? Is it AI? Is it human? It's going to be, without better tools of discovery, increasingly difficult to suss that out. A number of people already mentioned on the call dealing with protected information, but with regards to teamwork, what are the collaboration modes? What are the different singular modes and how you adapt and use AI? What are the denominational boundaries of AI with regards to boundaries of personnel? I mean, AI engines aren't built with distinct disciplinary boundaries to them. So I can't. The second would be cataloging. And here is where it's more knowledge management. Zotero, EndNote, Mendeley, these have all been out there quite a while. Quite a while, I mean, in the last years. I believe EndNote might be the oldest amongst them. But this is how we can catalog information. I personally, I would like, and you know, catalog everything that's on in my OneDrive account for me. That would be great. Synthesis. I have not used either of these with regards to synthesis. I look at what it produces and I edit and adapt that and synthesize it myself, crediting AI where I'm utilizing it. So that is a synthesis. Those are a couple synthesis tools out there. Number four in this cycle is project management, Trello, Asana, forecasting. A couple of those are just straight up built off literally like Trello's built off a Kanban idea, that pull idea. Project management approaches. So I haven't seen where it's been as impactful in these areas. Others on the call might have you had better use of it than I do. And then finally with writing, I mean, literally, it's like, did you copy homework? We can dump any writing into these to see, did you give credit? Did you use this as your own or not? And they're getting better. There were some, these things typically are conservative. So the problem is that they might identify something as AI or copied when it certainly may not be. But these are just some overall AI tools in here. And given where we're at, I am going to stop sharing here because I think we've had enough in the chat that we can have a discussion.
So requests, for instance, from LinkedIn asking for collaborative article inputs on specific topics. What is the ethical angle to this? I think is the question that was asked. How would that, and maybe
Oh yeah, yeah.
how would that fit into the code, maybe ethical standards apart from AI, but how would that fit into something like that?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts? So again, the requests for collaborative topic inputs on topics from LinkedIn.
Who wants to answer that?
The answer is yes.
Yes. We can
Yes,
identify.
yes, and or yes, but I think from other questions.
Yes, and you need to figure out how you can get access to those. The publishing world is a business model, and depending on how you get access, you can find things through Google, say Google Scholar on original content. But understand, most people, of course, on the call know this, is publishing houses have rights. You when you write and you transfer the copyright, they own that, and they have the right to retain that copyright in which you get that article ethically. You can't just simply pass things around without it and violate a copyright agreement. So just as a basic, I go back to that's just basic ethics with regards to respecting how that currently works. Now, increasingly in this space, there's open access journals. We are a purveyor of that. I write in those. I'm a believer in them as well. Can things improve? Yes, they can. But we can certainly provide where you could go look for those, and then you can determine how you get access to those if it requires, additional means, monies to do so. And that leads over the triple bottom line of how do you impact not just economics, but environmental, social. Generally speaking, an AI query is 10 times as energy intensive as a normal web query. So it takes a lot more energy to utilize. And if you have been reading in the media, why is Meta thinking about buying a decommissioned power plant and spinning it back up? It's because companies that are rushing to own the AI sphere, a lot of them are looking at how does this meet their energy management and energy neutrality agreements that we have globally. So if it is a lot more energy intensive, it's important as to how is the energy generated in the place. Is it coming from something that has lots of emissions, coal, whatnot, or is it more of an all the above strategy would point to not just classic energy production, but also nuclear, solar, other alternatives? Sustainable computing, the research has not really been emergent. There's not a lot there. I think about how sustainable is all this with regards to other needs that we have that are out there. And if not our needs nationally, we certainly have our trading partners paying attention to those needs, and those needs impact our trade agreements. So sustainability is one piece of this that wasn't a part of this conversation, but for associating here, that's something that I've wondered about.
Yeah, I put a link in the chat for some groups, or at least a group I know here at Purdue that does really good work called the Grail Lab that deal with the ethics and responsibility around AI.
This has been another webinar from LED, Lean Enterprise Division. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're calling in from, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. John, Chad, really thank you. This was great. A lot of good information here, and a lot of things to think about, things that make you go, So, good for that. Hopefully people will take and explore some of these areas on their own. All right, folks. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Enjoy
Thanks
the rest
again.
of your day, and take care.
Thank you. Take care.